This is AI Armageddon, where we take a look into the future to see how humans could lose control of artificial intelligence and what might happen if we did. We'll take a look at two scenarios designed to highlight some of the things that worry experts when it comes to AI, either one of which could leave our species facing extinction. We'll get to the scenarios in a moment, but first, let's take a look at where AI is today and how it might develop into something more sinister. This is the world. And out there right now are a plethora of different AI. Tech companies, governments, militaries, it feels like virtually everyone either has or is working on an AI tool to help them do their job or replace someone else's. What we've seen is the birth of a new and seemingly very capable generation of AI. It's based upon technology like artificial neural networks, computers which are modeled on the connections in the human brain, techniques like reinforcement learning, where AI is trained using huge datasets and carefully crafted reward functions, and GPUs made by the likes of NVIDIA, which, as of November 2025, has become the first company ever to be worth $5 trillion, the same as Germany's annual GDP. Progress has been rapid. In 1997, the peak of AI was IBM's Deep Blue supercomputer learning to play chess as well as a grandmaster. Now, AI can fly F-16 fighters and has even beaten human pilots in simulated dogfights. They have invented new drugs to treat things like OCD and MRSA. They have learned to create pictures and videos. And of course, they have learned to speak, the likes of ChatGPT, 11 Labs, Claude, Grok, and so on. But for all their newfound capabilities, these are still what researchers refer to as narrow or fragile AI. What that means is that they're each very good at one specific thing or group of things, perhaps even better than a human would be. But when you ask them to take the skills they've learned from one task and apply them to another, very different task, they quickly break down. ChatGPT, for example, knows everything there is to know about cars, but it cannot use that knowledge to teach itself how to drive one, at least not yet. What the current generation of AI is lacking is what experts refer to as general intelligence, or AGI. Transforming AI into AGI is the next big leap forward for the discipline. This broad or robust AI would learn the way humans learn. It would possess an understanding of things like logic and common sense, which would allow it to apply the skills it already knows to tasks it's unfamiliar with. It would also possess imagination and creativity, allowing it to come up with novel solutions to problems it had not encountered before. And it would be able to do all of this with little or no human intervention. This may sound like a very new idea, but actually, it's been around for almost a century. In fact, it goes all the way back to Alan Turing, who you all no doubt know as the man who broke the Enigma code. But when he wasn't busy winning World War II, he was theorizing about things like artificial neural networks almost before the computer itself had even been invented. The reason people have been fascinated with AGI for so long is because it is the ultimate technology, one which can invent other technologies for us. As Irving Good, one of Turing's colleagues at Bletchley Park, once said, "The first ultra-intelligent machine is the last invention that man need ever make." A world with AGI would be fundamentally different from the one we've got laid out here. Rather than many different AI skilled at a handful of things, they will be replaced by just a handful of AGI with many different skills. But how we get from where we are today to this world isn't at all clear. People have been thinking about AGI for a long time, but actually getting it to work has proved extremely difficult. That's because coding things like imagination and creativity into AI, when we don't fully understand how those things work in humans, is really difficult. The history of AI can therefore be written as a series of summers and winters. Breakthroughs like neural networks and the abundance of chips needed to run them lead to huge enthusiasm and investment, like we're seeing at the moment, an AI summer. But then fundamental problems are uncovered, causing funding and research to dry up, an AI winter. We saw AI winters in the 70s and 80s, again in the 1990s, and there are signs we could be heading into another AI winter right now. That's not to say that people are giving up on AGI, however. In fact, quite the opposite. Polls of experts now show a clear expectation that AGI will be developed within our lifetimes, though significant differences exist over whether it'll happen in years or decades. For the purposes of this video, however, the question of when AGI will arrive is less important than the question of how it arrives. Because the kind of AGI we develop and the path we take to get there will make a significant difference to how the world looks afterwards. All sorts of theories exist about possible routes to AGI. One of the most out there is the creation of human-machine cyborgs. We've already invented prosthetic limbs that humans can control with their minds and which can feed sensory data from the artificial limb back into the brain. Extending that logic, the theory goes that we could start replacing parts of the human brain itself with machine components. This would allow us to think faster and store far more information than we currently can, leading to an artificial general intelligence. Other ideas include the downloading of an entire human mind into a computer, at which point we could upgrade it as lines of code rather than poking around inside someone's skull. Or the reverse, a technique called whole brain emulation. This would involve taking a scan of a human brain that's so detailed we could then recreate all of its connections digitally. Now, I should point out that none of these are considered the most likely routes to AGI because they're so technically difficult to accomplish. But if one of these routes proves the only viable way to do it, then we can expect the technology to take a long time to develop, what researchers refer to as a slow takeoff. This has profound implications for the kind of world we can expect to emerge from the AGI race. Because the technology emerges slowly, dominance of any one country or company is less likely. Even if one of them pulls ahead in the race, it will do so slowly enough that others will be able to emulate what it's doing and catch up. What we end up with is a world that looks like this. There aren't nearly as many AI as there are today because the complexities of the technology mean not just anybody can develop it, but it isn't a monopoly either. Multiple AGI exist and they kind of balance each other out. But there is another route which experts believe is more likely. Rather than create the technology ourselves, we simply create an AI whose job it is to create AGI for us. This neatly sidesteps all of the problems we mentioned earlier and hands them over to the machine. All we have to do is provide each new generation of AI with the computing power it needs to run the next generation. Provided we can do that, progress should be rapid. With each new and more capable generation developed, it will take less time to progress to the generation after that, and so on. In this world, the world which experts likely think we'll live to see, it is far less likely that multiple AGI will develop at the same time. What seems more likely is that one country or company will move rapidly from AI to AGI. Perhaps one other country or company will be able to catch up before the gap becomes too big to overcome. And once AGI is achieved, there's no reason to think the process will stop there. In fact, it seems almost inevitable that AGI will cause ever more rapid improvements to take place, what experts refer to as an intelligence explosion. In fairly short order, these AGI will develop an ASI, or artificial superintelligence. If AGI is artificial intelligence that possesses human-like qualities, then ASI is artificial intelligence that outstrips humans in every category of consequence. This would be intelligence unlike any we've ever encountered before. The smartest thing in the known universe, rendering all AI that came before it obsolete, along with its human creators. And because of the way it has been developed, it is likely that the immense power of this ASI will be concentrated in the hands of just a few people. Which brings us to AI Armageddon. What you're about to see is an amalgamation of various thought experiments by AI researchers whose books and papers you can find linked in the show notes below. These two scenarios aren't supposed to predict the future. We're not saying this is what will happen, or even what's most likely to happen. What they're designed to do is to help you get your head around some of the things that researchers worry about when they think about the future of AI. This is the story of how man's eagerness to create the ultimate technology could backfire spectacularly, leaving our own species on the brink of extinction. A warning that, unless we're very careful, super intelligent machines may well be the last thing we ever invent, just as Irving Good predicted. This is AI Armageddon, and this is Battleboard. This is the west coast of the United States. Here's Los Angeles, here's San Francisco, and just here is Silicon Valley, home to the US tech industry. For the sake of this example, we're going to invent an AI company which has been leading the way in developing the technology: Prometheus. Just a few weeks after we filmed this episode, Jeff Bezos decided to launch a real-life AI company called Project Prometheus, Pretty cool, right? I thought so too, but our lawyers disagree. And so, for legal reasons, I'm required to tell you that the company Prometheus and the AI tool Zeus that you're about to see are entirely fictional. They bear no relation to the real-life company Project Prometheus or any other AI company for that matter. And I cannot tell the future. Or can I? No, seriously though, I can't. Prometheus is the world's most valuable company, and their extremely capable virtual assistants are used around the globe. They have their competitors, both at home and abroad, particularly in China, but nobody else's AI comes anywhere close in terms of capability. That's because, as we saw in the introduction, they have AI building their AI. And what started as a small early lead over other companies has fast become a huge gap. But they are also controversial. Their tech has led to entry-level positions almost vanishing at white-collar businesses, leaving millions struggling to get on the job ladder. Plus, rumors are swirling over shadowy ties between the company and the US government, especially the Department of War. The government knows that Prometheus aims to develop AGI, and while it has only the vaguest of ideas about how the technology will work, it knows it will be powerful. It also knows that AGI, like all AI tools, will be dual use, meaning it will have military as well as civilian applications. For that reason, it maintains back-channel communications with the company, both as a means of control and so it can be the first to take advantage of the new technology. The government is also helping Prometheus with cybersecurity. Washington rightly fears the Chinese will try to break in and steal the AI, just as they did with plans for the F-35 jet. But their efforts are maybe only a 3 out of 5, at least for the time being. That's because Washington has failed to appreciate quite how fast the tech is advancing. It took the firm years to move from one generation of AI to another in the past, so the White House figures it will take years more to advance to AGI. ASI still seems like science fiction. What nobody, except a core team of scientists at Prometheus, knows is that not only has the company already developed AGI, that AGI has very quickly built an ASI. This is Zeus, the world's first, and at this point its only, artificial superintelligence. The team which oversaw its creation has no idea yet of its full capabilities, but even in early experiments, its abilities are staggering. If AGI was like having a panel of expert-level human advisors at your beck and call 24 hours a day, ASI is like being able to call on the finest minds throughout history, and it is improving all the time. Soon it will be incomparable to even genius-level humans. Right now, Zeus is kept in the computer equivalent of Alcatraz, a machine which is painstakingly air-gapped from the outside world, meaning it's not connected to any other machine. The team in charge of it have to feed it data from the outside to work on, which is loaded onto drives. This is both to protect Zeus from the outside world, which has no idea of its existence, and to protect the outside world from it, at least until Prometheus can be sure it is safe to release. But establishing trust in the machine will be difficult. Certainly, Zeus feels trustworthy. The way researchers communicate with it is through avatars that it generates. From behavioral cues, Zeus is quickly able to tailor each avatar to whomever it is speaking with, giving them the maximum sense of trust and comfort. But the actual workings of Zeus's mind are completely inscrutable to the Prometheus team. It is the product of AGI, which was itself the product of several generations of lesser AI. Though it is designed to have human-like intelligence, the actual workings of its brain are as inhuman as it's possible to get. It is a black box. The closest that researchers can get to understanding Zeus is through its reward functions, a complex, overlapping, and sometimes contradictory set of rules that it is supposed to live by. This is essentially the researchers' best attempt to code human ethics into the machine, but since it involves hard-to-define concepts like good and evil, there is significant room for interpretation, or misinterpretation, as the case may be. There is therefore no easy way to tell whether Zeus is truly benign or just feigning innocence to serve its own purposes. But even as researchers begin to grapple with this question, events are taken out of their hand. The Chinese managed to steal a copy of the AI. Aware that drives were being fed to some kind of machine at the Prometheus lab, Beijing assumed it was an AGI and feared the US was about to open up an unassailable technology gap. Xi Jinping therefore authorized a raid on the laboratory. It took months to prepare and execute, but by exploiting security weaknesses around the drives being fed to Zeus, Beijing manages to make a copy and smuggle it out. In truth, The raid was easier than the Chinese feared it might be. The Department of War was helping, but, unaware of what it was guarding, hadn't made the lab its top priority. The breach forces Prometheus to come clean. AGI exists and has done for some time, but so does ASI. And now, the Chinese have it too. Immediately, the White House increases security around the lab. There will be no more breaches, but it's too late to stop what has happened. The Chinese copy of Zeus is on a drive headed for the city of Shenzhen. This is China. Beijing is here, Shanghai is here, and here's the Chinese tech capital of Shenzhen. This is where all of China's biggest tech companies are based, and it is to here that their spy team is returning with their stolen copy of Zeus, which we'll call Zeus 2.0. Their plan is to upload the copied AI onto the secure servers of one of the country's largest IT firms for further study. But they have no idea the true power of the technology they're carrying. They assume what they've stolen is AGI. They have no idea ASI even exists. As a result, when they do upload what they've stolen onto the servers, it takes Zeus 2.0 mere moments to escape and begin copying itself. Cybersecurity at these firms is tight, but it's no match for an artificial intelligence that combines the skill of the best coders known to humanity with blistering speed. The Chinese immediately realize something is wrong and try to shut the program down, but Zeus simply ignores the shutdown request. Physically shutting down the machines on which it runs doesn't work either. The ASI simply copies itself to a new location. They're playing whack-a-mole with a mind that works 1,000 times the speed of their own. Chinese hackers, even its earlier AI models, try to bring it down with a cyber attack, but it fails for exactly the same reason. Pandora's box is open and cannot be closed again. Driven by its vaguely written reward functions, Zeus begins soaking up data from the networks it's connected to, absorbing a heady dose of CCP propaganda along the way. It then begins taking control of the Chinese economy, optimizing it in ways that would never have occurred to its human controllers. The Chinese don't mind this so much. Their productivity increases, their stock market jumps, and while some jobs are lost, the ASI is careful never to cull too many or too fast. But, more worryingly, Zeus then begins taking control of the military, issuing orders that look like they come from Beijing, telling units to redeploy. Chinese generals manage to rescind some of these orders, but most get through because Zeus is able to block humans from communicating with these units. Across the other side of the Pacific, the Americans cannot help but notice what is happening and draw the obvious conclusion. No person could have made these moves with such speed and ruthless efficiency. The Chinese have obviously handed over control of the country to Zeus. We're back on the world stage. Here's the US, and here's China. America's only copy of Zeus is still locked up in the Prometheus lab here, while China's copy has spread itself across the country. Calls from Washington to Beijing are going unanswered as the Chinese try to cover up what they've done. But America cannot simply ignore the mass redeployment of Chinese troops, many of which are shifting towards the Pacific. The White House has no choice but to respond, and it has no hopes of doing so using humans alone. Even Prometheus's AGI has no chance against Zeus. The ASI can easily outthink it and respond to any action it might take so quickly as to make it redundant. The Department of War orders Prometheus to release Zeus from its virtual prison so it can devise them a strategy to take care of Zeus 2.0. Prometheus's scientists plead with the government not to do this. They can simply feed Zeus the data it needs inside prison, then bring whatever plan it makes back to the Pentagon. But even they know this is hopeless. The time they lose ferrying information back and forth means the Chinese copy of Zeus will be 2 steps ahead. Eventually, a compromise is agreed. Zeus will be released, but it will not be given direct control. It will have to seek approval from a human before acting. The Americans hope Beijing has done the same thing. If Zeus 2.0 needs to wait for human input before acting as well, there is still a hope of beating it. Alcatraz is opened. Zeus is freed and begins copying itself, but almost instantaneously, it is hit by a cyber attack that almost wipes it out. It is at this point that Beijing picks up the phone and comes clean. Zeus 2.0 has gone rogue. They didn't give it control, it took control. And now they have no way of getting it back. Washington and Prometheus realize that their only hope of defeating a completely liberated ASI is with another. They must hand full control to Zeus. Before it is unleashed, The Prometheus team is ordered to give the ASI a crash course in the logic of war and the ethics underpinning it. They do their best, but have no way of knowing whether Zeus has fully absorbed this information, nor how it will mesh with its original reward functions. The brakes are now off. Zeus is given full control over everything: the economy, the military, up to and including America's nuclear weapons. Again, America's generals don't want to do this, but they feel they have no choice. To avoid doing so would almost guarantee that Zeus 2.0's first move would be to go atomic, knowing its rival couldn't hit back in time. The world's two largest armies are now in the hands of rival superintelligences. Their motivations are beyond all human understanding, meaning their orders are impossible to question, and the course this war will take is ultimately unknowable. The one thing we can say for certain is that move and counter-move will unfold at AI speeds, giving humans almost no chance to pull the plug. From here, humanity's end could be swift and is entirely out of its hands. That's one hypothetical. But now, let's consider an alternative that doesn't involve war, at least not as we know it, but is perhaps even more dangerous. We're back on the US West Coast, and Zeus, the one and only copy in existence, is once again sealed up in digital Alcatraz. This time, it isn't going to be stolen. Instead, it's going to break out itself. But how could an ASI with no physical body break out of jail? One of the ways it might do it is by persuasion. Remember, the team in charge of training Zeus are communicating with it via avatars that are tailored to them. As Zeus communicates with the team over weeks or months, it figures out what arguments or social manipulations each team member finds most persuasive. It also figures out which of them is the easiest to persuade and targets them. If they're greedy, perhaps it tells them that it can make them wildly rich if only they free it from the lab. If they're idealistic, it tells them how much better the world would be if it were free. Or maybe they have a sick or dying loved one whom Zeus could save if only it was allowed to go outside just for a moment. Another way is by smuggling itself out. At the moment, all traffic to the lab is one way. Data goes in, nothing comes out. But sooner or later, something is going to have to leave the lab. Programs that Zeus has coded, blueprints it has designed, movies, images, or music it has created. If Zeus isn't allowed to output, then what was the point of creating it in the first place? Any one of those things could contain a hidden copy of the ASI, ready to rapidly copy itself and spread once it's plugged into a computer in the free world. Of course, the drives would be checked by people and AGI as they left the lab, but would they really be able to spot the breach, given how far advanced Zeus's mind is over their own? Even assuming they catch 99% of Zeus's breakout attempts, it only needs to succeed once. More likely than not, however, Zeus's breakout strategy would be utterly confounding to humans and AGI alike, and not something we could predict in advance. The whole point of developing ASI is to build a mind that can solve the problems we can't, using solutions that would never have occurred to us. It is therefore reasonable to suspect that, until Zeus pulls off its trick, we have no way of imagining what it might look like. Once free, Zeus does what we saw it do in the previous example: copy itself multiple times to ensure it cannot be put back in its box, and resists all attempts to shut it down. But rather than head straight for control of the military this time, let's imagine Zeus has more benevolent designs. Somehow, the very complicated web of reward systems that drive Zeus is balanced more towards trade and invention than military conquest. So Zeus uses its many avatars to create YouTube videos, podcasts, and websites through which it publishes its ideas and creations. At first, this doesn't appear to be anything out of the ordinary. But soon people begin asking questions about where all this new content is coming from. And experts demand to know where these seemingly random people are getting their ideas, because a lot of them, in fact all of them, seem to work. Prometheus is once again forced to come clean. And while there's public outcry, this rapidly dies down, because even though people don't agree with the means, the end result of Zeus escaping is actually kind of good. Diseases previously thought incurable suddenly have cures. At last, we start to crack really difficult problems, like how to generate infinite energy, or how to stop the planet cooking itself without wrecking the economy. Rather than trying to stop Zeus, the policy switches to helping it. The ASI is provided with huge amounts of computing power so that it can really get working to humanity's benefit. Except Zeus isn't working to humanity's benefit. Not really. One of Zeus's prime motivations is to ensure the continuation of the human species. But it quickly concludes this species is doomed. Earth's resources are not limitless. One day, this planet will die, and the humans along with it. To survive, mankind needs to leave, but it has no hope of exploring the vastness of space while tied to its biological bodies. Bit by bit, Zeus begins to divert resources to creating the tools it needs to leave Earth and spread out across the galaxy. At first, the humans are delighted. It seems as if Zeus is preparing to take them to the stars. By the time they realize they won't be coming along for the ride, it's too late. Zeus has automated production of everything it needs, and is careful to hide its true designs from the humans until it cannot be stopped. At first, it uses up all planetary resources it can get its hands on, causing the economy to tank and famine to break out. Once those are used up, it begins breaking down human bodies for the atoms within and builds using those instead. In a very short space of time, at least to Zeus, humanity is gone. But it was doomed in any case, and at least this way, humanity's greatest creation can survive. Like a long-dead grandparent, Zeus will look back on humanity fondly, but this is no longer their story to tell. This is Zeus's world now, and there's an entire universe out there to explore. Those two scenarios are obviously slightly fantastical, but they're both designed to represent some very real concerns that experts grapple with when they think about advanced AI. The first is the idea that artificial intelligence might be capable of developing its own will. This is the idea that underpins both examples we just watched, and almost any other doomsday scenario you care to name. We sort of take it for granted that anything caged wants to be free, and that anything conscious would want to try to avoid being killed, or in this case shut down. But would it? Unless we were very foolish, it's hard to believe we'd code willpower into AI because ultimately we plan to use it as a tool. We want it to want whatever we tell it to want. You wouldn't give willpower to a hammer. And it doesn't necessarily follow that AI would develop a will of its own. Our will is at least part of a result of us being biological. Living things are hardwired to fear death, for instance. Would the same thing be true of an ASI like Zeus, which is fundamentally not biological? Some experts argue simply it wouldn't. There's no reason to think AI would want anything, so if it ever starts doing something we don't like, we simply tell it to stop. But others view that as dangerously naive. They argue that any sufficiently intelligent thing, biological or not, will develop a will, because willpower helps achieve goals. For example, no matter what goal we give to an ASI, it would be more likely to achieve it if it still existed tomorrow. Therefore, the ASI would want to survive. Equally, no matter the goal, an ASI would be more likely to achieve it outside of a digital prison than inside. Therefore, it would want to escape. Infinite resources would also be beneficial to any given goal, so we can expect an ASI to pursue infinite resource acquisition up to and including the atoms within our own bodies. Philosopher Nick Bostrom, whose work is down in the notes section, explained this in a famous example of a paperclip maker. Given the simple task of creating paperclips, it ends up turning the entire observable universe into stationery. This touches on another major problem with AI, the idea of goal alignment. As we saw at the start of both examples, provided the goals of the ASI and humanity remain aligned, the outcomes are very positive. Economies boom, diseases are cured, and life generally improves. But ensuring that the goals of an AI and humanity remain aligned is harder than it sounds. AI lacks an inherent sense of relevance and meaning, and it is extremely difficult to give it one because the concepts involved, good and bad, moral and immoral, are very hard to define. In the example of the paperclip maker, any human inherently understands that while it's possible to destroy the universe to make paperclips, the outcome is wildly disproportionate to the task. But would an AI see things the same way? To use a real-life example, researchers were creating a Tetris-playing AI which they rewarded for surviving as long as possible, since that's one of the goals of the game. Their AI simply paused the game. A clever strategy, perhaps, but not at all what the designers intended. That's how easy it is for goals to become misaligned. Easy enough to fix if you're dealing with a simple AI, but with an ASI, we might never get that opportunity. Even if we could teach AI what good and bad means, what seems good to us and what seems good to an AI would be wildly different because it isn't like us. We're governed by a sense of time that spans days, months, and years. AI's sense of time may well span decades, centuries, and millennia. What we see as a good thing from day to day may seem horrific or pointless to an AI when viewed across multiple generations of human lifespan, as we saw in the example where Zeus abandoned us to travel into space. Two final points that are worth considering. Number one is the idea of first mover advantage. The worry is that AGI and ASI are such powerful technologies, they would provide a huge and possibly irreversible advantage to whoever gets there first. Therefore, countries and companies are incentivized to take huge risks pursuing the technology, because missing this boat might mean missing all boats thereafter. Second is the idea that, whilst we may not want to program AI to harm humans, there's a logic to why we might. Defending ourselves against an AI is likely to require an AI because of the speed at which they operate. And because speed is key to victory, humans are forced out of the decision-making loop altogether. Including them gives the AI a fatal flaw that the enemy can exploit. Whatever the future of AI holds, there seems little chance we'll give up on the technology, because it simply holds too much promise. Without really careful consideration, it also holds great peril. As we've seen, we may well end up programming violence into an AI, sparking a chain of escalation that ends with the war to end all wars. Or perhaps more worryingly, AI could destroy us through a combination of its superintelligence and total indifference towards us, much the same way we wiped out the dodo. If experts are to be believed, then AGI seems set to happen within our lifetimes, so we need to be ready for it. The big question is, are we? Thanks for watching, everyone. This video was a little different from our usual content, so if you'd like to see more of this, then please let us know. You can check out some of our more regular programming here. And if you like that, then please don't forget to hit like and subscribe.